Location, location, location. Have you ever heard that saying? Well, it turns out it's not just about real estate. It is equally important when you're forming your LLC or a corporation for your podcast or your channel or your online business or whatever. So stick around, because today I'm sharing a story about a company that almost got hit with a massive tax bill just because they formed their corporation in the wrong place. Trust me, you don't want to miss. Welcome to another episode of Legit Podcast Pro. I'm Gordon Firemark, the podcast lawyer, and today we're diving into why the location for your podcast enterprise, your company, matters. And first off, I want to tell you the story about the Delaware story. I'll kick things off here with recently I helped a new company that had decided to form their corporation in the state of Delaware. That's fine. They authorized 1 million shares of stock at a penny each, so that's a $10,000 valuation. And that is a pretty common approach to doing this kind of thing in many, many jurisdictions. But here is where things went a little sideways. Delaware calculates its taxes based on the total number of shares and not the total value. So this company was staring down the barrel of a really hefty tax bill. But luckily, we caught it just in time and managed to amend the documents and save the situation. Crisis averted. So what exactly happened here is the company's founders, like many others, assumed that the share value would be the main consideration in tax calculations. They didn't realize that Delaware uses this different metric. This kind of an oversight is what can be really, really costly. It's a classic example of why it's crucial to understand the specific laws and tax implications of the state where you choose to incorporate or form your LLC. Now imagine if we hadn't caught this mistake, the tax bill could have crippled their startup before they even got off the ground. These founders were relieved, of course, but it served as a stark reminder that these kinds of decisions are more than just paperwork. They have real, tangible consequences for your business. So, what can we learn from this? Well, here are the key things you need to consider when choosing where to form your LLC or corporation. Different states have different tax structures. For instance, in California, we have a minimum franchise tax, while Delaware taxes based on the number of shares. So do the homework. In California, let's break it down a little bit. The minimum franchise tax is $800 annually, regardless, well, not regardless of the income, but for the company until you're generating into the many millions of dollars. So this means that even if your podcast isn't generating revenue, you'd still be on the hook for that $800. Contrast this with a state like Wyoming, which has a relatively low annual report fee of $50. Now, these differences can really add up over time and put an impact onto your bottom line. Now, the problem is that, it isn't just a matter of, I'm saying, okay, well, then I'll go to Wyoming, because you have to also consider where you're actually located and doing business. Now, some states also, the regulatory environment is a factor. There are more stringent regulations in some places than in others. So you need to know the filing requirements and ongoing compliance issues for the state that you choose. For example, in New York, LLCs have to publish their formation in 2 newspapers for 6 consecutive weeks. That can be an unexpected expense. And meanwhile, states like New Mexico that don't have this requirement make the process much simpler and cheaper, but they may have other regulations we need to think about. Understanding the nuances can save you a lot of hassle and a lot of money. Liability protection and corporate veil-piercing laws can also vary from place to place. Some states have stronger protections for business owners. Some states do a better job of protecting the directors and the shareholders, some more for the officers, and so on. In Nevada, for instance, it has strong corporate veil protections. It's much harder for creditors to go after your personal assets there. Delaware also has a very robust legal framework that can be more expensive, but it can also provide a lot of shielding for the officers and the board of directors. So knowing how your shareholders' personal assets, how your directors and executives' assets can be protected under the laws of the states you choose is really also very important. Consider also where most of your business activities and employees will be. Your physical presence will definitely have an impact on your choice of jurisdiction. If your operations, your podcast, for example, are mainly in one state, well, excuse me, it makes sense to form your LLC in that state in most situations, because operating in the state where you form your company will simplify the tax situation and reduce the need for multiple state filings. Because if you form in Delaware or Wyoming, but you're doing business in Texas, you're supposed to also register in Texas as what we call a foreign corporation. So being familiar with your local legal environment and tax environment can be a really big advantage. And if you incorporate it in one state, but your key operations, employees, or executives in another, then you have to qualify in all those states. That's added cost, added paperwork, added hassle, and possibly more taxes. So be sure to think about these kinds of things. Now, forming and maintaining an LLC or corporation can be more expensive depending on where you're located. As I said, Delaware tends to have higher fees and taxes compared to others, as does California. But on top of the initial filing fees, there's the ongoing operating costs that you have to consider. Some states, like Nevada, doesn't have any state corporate income tax, but it does have higher annual business license fees and things like that. On the other hand, states like Ohio have lower costs for maintaining the LLC. So balancing out these expenses against the various benefits that those states offer is really important in making an informed decision. So, what are some of the common states where forming LLCs and corporations is happening? Well, Delaware is often the go-to for startups and especially large corporations due to their well-established corporate law and business-friendly courts. Delaware has its own court of chancery that is renowned for handling corporate cases, and that can be a significant advantage if you ever do face legal disputes. It's sort of expert judges in that arena. The downsides, of course, is higher costs in Delaware. The annual franchise tax can be steep, especially when you have that big number of shares authorized. And it also requires, like most states, if they're not where you're located, you have to have a registered agent, and that's an additional expense. Nevada is known for its absence of a state corporate income tax and strong privacy laws that protect the identities of the owners of the company, the shareholders or the members. And this can be very appealing for business owners that want to maintain a kind of anonymity. But Nevada has its own compliance requirements like business licenses and annual reports. Those things can add up. And some people perceive Nevada corporations as somehow less reputable. So that might affect investor confidence and things like that. I mentioned Wyoming before. They are gaining popularity because of low fees and strong privacy protections. It is a very cost-effective place to form an LLC. There's no state corporate income tax, and the ongoing fees are small. However, the legal framework there is much less established for businesses than it is, for example, in Delaware. Fewer precedent if you face legal issues and so on. So you're sort of blazing your own trail and at the whim of the sentiment of judges and juries in that state. Forming in your home state can really simplify most aspects of your business operations. You're already going to be familiar with local laws and regulations, and you won't need to register as a foreign entity if most of your operations are local as well. So some states might have higher taxes or more stringent regulations, as we've said before, and there's a lot to consider here. So my advice when deciding where to form your LLC or corporation, you need to understand the local taxes and fees. That means looking at the initial costs as well as the ongoing expenses. Some states have low filing fees but higher annual fees, and vice versa. Evaluate the regulatory environment. Choose a state that matches up and aligns with your business goals and offers the kinds of protections you need. If privacy is important, Nevada or Wyoming might be a good choice. Consider your business operations and associated costs, and think about where you're actually conducting most of your business. If you're planning to expand into merchandise or live events, consider also how those things will be impacted by local state regulations and taxes. And if you're operating in multiple states, you're probably going to need to qualify to do business in each one. And that can mean additional fees, compliance requirements, tax liabilities. So it's important to factor in all of these things. It's all about balancing your business needs with the pros and cons for each of these jurisdictions. And remember, the right choice for one business might not be best for another. So take your time and evaluate this and seek professional advice if you need to. And that sort of brings me to our call to action. Before I wrap up, a couple of invitations for you. First off, I have a free Podcasters Legal Checklist that you can get by visiting podcasterschecklist.com. That's podcasters, plural, checklist.com, all one word, podcasterschecklist.com. It includes and covers everything from intellectual property considerations, contract essentials, and helps you ensure you've got all your boxes checked and T's crossed and I's dotted for the various aspects of your podcast enterprise. And if you would like to schedule a consultation with me, head on over to firemark.com and you can get my help to analyze your choice of jurisdiction or business structure. And we can delve into your specific business needs, compare the different jurisdictions, and find the best fit for your particular situation, the personalized approach to making sure you are set up right for your business. So that's going to be it for this episode of Legit Podcast Pro. I hope this episode has shed some light on why choosing the right location for your LLC or corporation is so important. And please join me next time as we dive into more tips and insights that'll help you navigate the podcasting world. Next time, we're going to be talking about when you're working with kids, some of the special considerations when you're having children as underage, minors is what I'm talking about, as co-hosts or guests or working on part of your team. So don't forget to visit the website for your free checklist, schedule a consultation, all those things. And until next time, keep on podcasting with confidence. I'll see you again soon.